I remember the day the city fell. The smell of smoke still lingers in my memory. Thick black clouds rising over marble domes that once gleamed like mirrors beneath the Italian sun. The streets of Rome, where emperors had paraded in triumph and philosophers once debated in marble forums, now echoed with the crackle of fire and the screams of panic. Statues of gods and generals lay shattered, and the golden eagle standard, the proud emblem of our empire, was trampled into the dust. That was the day I realized Rome, the eternal city, was eternal no more. But the fall of the Roman Empire didn't happen in one day. It wasn't one battle, one betrayal, or one emperor's mistake. It was the slow, tragic unraveling of a civilization that once believed it could never die. I saw it, the arrogance, the corruption, the hunger for power that turned heroes into tyrants. Let me take you back to the beginning, to the time when Rome still believed it ruled the world. The glory before the fall. When I was young, Rome was unstoppable. The empire stretched across continents, from the windswept moors of Britain to the deserts of Arabia. We controlled the trade routes, commanded the seas, and built roads so precise that merchants said even the gods traveled upon them. The Forum was the heart of it all. Senators in white togas argued about politics, while merchants shouted prices in the crowded markets. The smell of olive oil, fresh bread, and wine filled the air. Gladiators trained for blood-soaked spectacles in the Colosseum. To live in Rome was to live at the center of the world. We believed the empire was blessed by the gods, Jupiter himself watching over us. We were wrong. The seeds of our downfall had already been planted, hidden beneath the marble and gold. The poison within, corruption and greed. I served in the imperial guard during the reign of Emperor Commodus, the son of the great Marcus Aurelius. His father had been a philosopher king, wise and just, but Commodus, he was different. I remember his eyes, wild, unpredictable. He saw himself as a god, not a ruler. He fought in the Colosseum dressed as Hercules, killing prisoners for sport while the Senate watched in forced applause. Gold flowed from the treasury to feed his vanity. The soldiers loved him for the bonuses he paid, but those coins came from taxes that broke the backs of farmers and merchants. Corruption spread like rot through the Senate. Bribes replaced honor. Loyalty could be bought. By the time Commodus was assassinated, strangled in his own bath by a man he trusted, the empire had already begun to crumble from within. The century of chaos. After Commodus, everything fell apart. For nearly 100 years, Rome was a battlefield, not against foreign invaders but against itself. We called it the crisis of the 3rd century. I lived through it. I saw emperors rise and fall faster than I could remember their names. One year, the Praetorian Guard would crown a general as Caesar. Next, they'd murder him for gold and sell the throne to another. Civil wars erupted across the empire. Cities were burned, provinces rebelled, and the borders grew weaker. The legions that once guarded our frontiers were too busy fighting each other. Outside the empire, the barbarians, Goths, Vandals, and Huns, watched and waited like wolves circling a wounded lion. The invasion of the north. I was stationed near the Danube when the first wave of Gothic tribes crossed the border. They came in thousands, men, women, and children, fleeing from something even more terrifying behind them, the Huns. We allowed them to enter as refugees, promising them land in exchange for peace. But our governors exploited them, demanding bribes and stealing their supplies. Hunger turned to anger, and soon the refugees became rebels. I'll never forget the Battle of Adrianople, 378 AD. The sky was black with arrows. Emperor Valens himself rode into the fight, but his arrogance was his undoing. He refused to wait for reinforcements. The Gothic cavalry broke through our ranks like a storm. By the end, the field was littered with Roman bodies. The emperor was never found. Some said he was burned alive in a farmhouse surrounded by his enemies. It was the day the Roman army, once the most feared in the world, learned that it could bleed. The division of the empire. After that defeat, the empire was split into two. The Western Empire ruled from Rome, and the Eastern Empire from Constantinople. At first, it seemed wise. Two emperors could manage what one could not, but it only divided us further. The East grew rich from trade, its capital protected by massive walls and Greek ingenuity. The West was left to decay. Rome was no longer the jewel of the empire. Its streets grew poorer, its aqueducts cracked, its glory fading like old paint. Taxes rose, farms failed, and citizens abandoned the city for safer lands. Even the army changed. Few Romans wanted to fight anymore. So we mercenaries, foreign soldiers with no loyalty except to their pay. I remember watching them march through the streets, speaking languages I couldn't understand, wearing armor that wasn't Roman. That's when I knew we were losing not just our power, but our identity. The rise of Christianity and the end of the old gods. When Emperor Constantine came to power, everything changed again. He saw a new faith rising, Christianity, and instead of crushing it, he embraced it. He claimed to see a vision of a cross in the sky before battle, a sign from God that promised victory. And he won. Rome became Christian almost overnight. Temples to Jupiter and Mars were abandoned. Crosses replaced eagles. Priests replaced augurs. The old gods who had once guided our armies and blessed our conquests were silent. Some of us felt hope, a new moral dawn. Others felt betrayal, that we had angered the very deities who made us great. But whatever the truth, the change divided the people even more. And when Constantine moved the capital east to Byzantium, renaming it Constantinople, Rome was left behind like a ghost of its former self. The sack of Rome, 410 AD. I was an old man when it happened. I never thought I'd live to see the unthinkable, Rome sacked by barbarians. Alaric, the king of the Visigoths, marched through our gates after years of being betrayed and mistreated by Roman politicians. The Senate begged for mercy. None came. For 3 days, the city burned. Noble houses were looted, temples desecrated, women taken, treasures stolen. The streets where emperors had once paraded their victories now ran red with blood. I stood on a hill outside the city and watched the smoke rise into the night sky. Some said the gods were punishing us. Others said it was simply justice, Rome reaping what it had sown. For me, it felt like watching the death of a family member. Slow, painful, inevitable. The last emperor. After that, the empire limped on, a shadow of what it once was. The Western emperors became puppets, controlled by generals and foreign warlords. In 476 AD, it finally ended. A barbarian general named Odoacer marched into the city and forced the young Emperor Romulus Augustulus to surrender the throne. He was just a boy, no older than 16. When he handed over the imperial crown, there were no battles, no glory, no last stand. Just silence. Rome, the empire that had ruled the known world for over 1,000 years, was no more. The echo that never died. But here's the thing. Though the empire fell, its spirit didn't vanish. Every road built, every law written, every language shaped, they all carried Rome's legacy forward. The Eastern Empire, Byzantium, survived for nearly another 1,000 years. And even centuries later, kings and emperors would still call themselves Caesar, trying to borrow the power of that name. Rome didn't die in one moment, it transformed. Its ideas of governance, architecture, philosophy, and law became the foundation of the modern world. As I walk through the ruins now, grass growing between the stones of the Forum, I can still hear whispers of the old empire, echoes of the senators, soldiers, and citizens who once believed Rome would last forever. Maybe in some ways it still does. If you felt like you were standing beside me, watching history unfold, make sure to like, subscribe, and comment below. What moment do you think truly ended the Roman Empire? History isn't just a story of what happened, it's a reminder of what can happen again. Rome thought it would never fall. But every empire forgets that even the greatest walls can crumble, not from enemies outside, but from the cracks within.